Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are and are watching this video. I'm Kushan Mitra, still under a mask, even though I'm alone in Delhi and don't need to wear a mask alone in the car. I keep it on because I get out of the car and I don't want to forget wearing a mask when I'm outside the car, because you should still be masked up when you're outside the car when you're meeting people. Anyway, today we are here talking about the Tata Tigor EV, a car I've had for about a week now. And between me and my wife, we've driven over 210 kilometers with this car so far, and probably have add another 10 by the time I get home today. Um, this car reaffirms my belief that electric cars are extremely cheap to run. So according to the gauge over here, I've been using 131 watts of electricity for every kilometer I drive. Now, once upon a time, if you've lived back in the day before LED lights, if you had incandescent argon lights, you would know that a 100-watt bulb was the big thing, right? I mean, if you wanted a really bright room, a 100-watt bulb. I've had this car can pretty much go therefore for almost up to 8 kilometers on what a chandelier full of incandescent lights would have taken up. Think about it. This car uses less energy to drive a kilometer than light bulbs used to not that long ago. Now, the other thing about this car is not only is it dirt cheap to run, it's also very well put together. And over there, I genuinely think Tata Motors has come a long way. Back in 2001, one of the very first cars I test drove as a journalist was the Tata Indica 2000. That was an MPFI petrol car. It had come out because of the government's rules at the time. The Supreme Court had ruled that Bharat Stage 2 norms were essential in Delhi, and Tata had moved to an MPFI engine, multi-point fuel injection. And now, if you know, all cars are fuel-injected engines. That back then you had carburetors as well. And Tata's back then, I mean, whether the Indica 2000, the Indica V2, or whatever you called it, they didn't feel right. I mean, even the seat fabrics back then were sucky. I mean, the plastics were horrible back then. There were panel gaps on the doors. The plastics felt bad. Tatas were seen as, they were very, very solid cars in terms of the steel they used, but they were nowhere near the Marutis of the day. Today, this car feels as good as its competitors, possibly even better than its competitors such as the Swift Dzire and the Hyundai Aura. I mean, great plastic quality, great build quality, great plastics, no panel gaps, an excellent paint job, as good as any other company in India. Great car. I mean, it has a nice vocal for local sticker, but it's really, really well put together. I said that about the Tiago ICNG also. I mean, these cars are very, very well put together. I mean, it's still got a Tata logo on it, as the old Indica would have, but Tata Motors has come, they've progressed generations in just 2 decades. I mean, they've gone places. So this is a very, very well put together car. So it's very cheap to run. You're running at just over a rupee a kilometer. And that is one reason I would buy a car like this. It's just so affordable. Now you'd say it costs 3 to 4 lakhs more than a regular top of the line 1.2 Ziptron Tigor would. That is true. No doubt about that. This car does cost quite a bit more than a regular petrol Tigor would. That said, today is the 7th of February 2022. We are about a month away from the last polling day in Uttar Pradesh. And petrol prices haven't really gone up since Diwali. But petrol prices at the pump in India, but crude prices globally have been, going upwards. I personally believe that petrol prices in India will go up significantly, could go up as much as 10 rupees by the end of March 2022, depending on, of course, where you stay. So a petrol Tigor or a petrol Dzire or a petrol Aura or cars in that class, which would give you an urban mileage of anywhere between 12 to 15 kilometers a litre, with today's petrol prices cost around 7 to 10 rupees a kilometer. I'm talking petrol ones. And this costs 1 rupee. Now, given the lifespan of this battery is guaranteed for 160,000 kilometers or 8 years, and that's another issue I'll get to, that means with a 6 rupee differential today, you will make up that money easily if you drive 1 lakh kilometers alone. And that is today, that's the minimum differential. Now, as petrol, I firmly believe petrol prices will easily hit 120 rupees a litre in some parts of India, maybe as high as 130 rupees a litre by the end of 2023. I could be wrong over there, it could happen even earlier than that. So therefore, the running cost of a regular petrol compact sedan could be, the base running cost could be 10 rupees a litre. And while electricity prices could increase, but I doubt it though. You would get the running costs will just make more sense to buy a car like this to run in the city. Of course, there is range anxiety. Now, I've never let this car dip below 25% while I have had it. But I took it to Greater Noida from South Delhi, and that day I ran a 88-kilometer journey, and I used about 40% of the battery. So extrapolating from that, I would say real world range is about 220 kilometers, which is more than enough for urban commuting. I'm very lucky that I have a wall box charger, even though that wall box charger rated at 10 kilowatts can only charge this car at 3.2 kilowatts, because the Tigor and the Nexon can only accept alternating current charging at 3.2 kilowatts, whether using the included 15 amp cable that Tata Motors gives you, or you're using a wall box, or you're using any of the charging facilities across the city that Tata Power and other service providers have put up. So yeah, from a running cost point of view, this is much more affordable. Now, of course, some people will say, but aren't you using polluting coal to create the power? That, I think, is a fallacy. Yes, coal and thermal energy is still a bulk of our power, but it is still more efficient to generate electricity from coal, converting coal to electricity, than it is to convert petrol to kinetic energy. And plus, when you brake in a normal car, you're wasting energy, right? You're transferring kinetic energy into heat energy and some noise energy, I guess. But over here, much of the power is also regenerated. Not all, but some of it is regenerated. Braking is essentially wasteful, and this car doesn't let all the braking power go to waste. So there is that. And the other fact about power is that India's energy mix is changing, and changing dramatically. We are now generating significant amount of power from wind and solar and other renewables. Yes, thermal still forms the bulk of power generation in India, but we are changing our energy mix as we go forward. So I could say that 20% of power is renewable or hydro. From it's changing, and that's my point over here. Now, obviously, some people will say, but I can't go long distance, not with 220 kilometers of range anyway. Yes, 220 kilometers would make me think twice of, say, going to my sister-in-law's house in Panipat, because door to door, that's about 110 kilometers. And so basically, I'll use up the battery in a return trip if I don't charge over there. But this is a city commuter. It's not designed for long distance drives on the highway. Yes, it can easily manage a Gurgaon to Noida trip, but Delhi Panipat, it doesn't even have the range to do a Delhi Chandigarh or a Delhi Jaipur as well. I mean, one charge won't even survive a Bombay Pune trip. round trip, just like it won't survive a Delhi-Panipat round trip. Tata realizes this. I think the Nexon EV is going to come with a slightly larger battery in the coming months. You'll have from a 26 kilowatt hour battery that this car and the Nexon EV have currently. I believe it's going to be a battery in the mid 30s that should increase range to about 350 odd kilometers, which is more than enough to do, say, a Delhi Jaipur or a Delhi Chandigarh quite easily. The other thing about driving this car and driving any electric car, and I've driven the fancy ones, is this is a very affordable electric car. I mean, compared it's 1/10 the price of a Jaguar I-Pace, even though the Jaguar I-Pace and the Tata Tigor both sent their profits back to Bombay House. But it's unearthly quiet. So I can hear the shock absorbers move on this car, which is something you don't really hear on regular petrol cars, because the vibrations and the vibrations, the engine vibrations and everything. Engine noise dampens out all these squiggles. It is a bit disconcerting that and right now I'm not playing any music on the car. Rest in peace, Lata Mangeshkar. But every radio channel is playing Lata Mangeshkar right now. So it is disconcerting that it's so quiet. When you start up the car, if I start up the car in my parking, which is under stilts, usually even with the quiet, efficient engines of today, it feels like I don't know. It just sounds weird because it's so silent. But yes, it's a car I can imagine buying in Delhi. It's well put together. It's got more than enough range. So even if I say living in Noida and working in Gurgaon or vice versa, where my daily commute would be anywhere between 60 to 100 kilometers, yeah, you can charge it once every 2 days, or you can charge it overnight. I'm very fortunate that I have a wall box. If you live in apartments, of course, charging will have issues. I think that's not a function of this car. That's a function of modern life. As I said, I'm very fortunate I have a wall box. Thank you to Audi India for giving me that wall box. It's a wall box that is maximum power charging is at 22 kilowatts, of course, but in India it has been capped at 10 kilowatts per hour, not just because of all the cars, but because residential sanction loads are much lower in India. But we'll get to that later. That's another video. I've spoken about that. That is a pertinent issue that I think has to be addressed going forward. But with the Tigor EV, I see an affordable, nice electric car that is well put together, and this is the future of motoring. Maybe if I was to buy an electric car, I'd probably wait for the extended range battery or the next generation of electric cars that Tata builds, which will be on a dedicated platform, because the Tigor and the Nexon are basically modified internal combustion cars that now have an electric drive. So do let me know in the comments, would you buy an electric car with its range constraints today? Or would you consider still buying a petrol or diesel car for the 1 or 2 long distance drives you make in a year? But if you have 2 cars, would you make sure one of them is electric maybe? Do let me know. Do like this video. Do subscribe for more such videos. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. It's always a pleasure.